go. I'm waiting for it to give us the alert, but I suspect we're already secretly live. Oh, there it goes. We are live. Hello, out there, Facebook land. Hope you're all having a pretty good day and that maybe we're able to bring you some good news that's just taken place. I am Dane from Moving to Canada, and I am joined today by Moving to Canada's editor, Mr. Hugo O'Doherty. How are you doing today, Hugo?
Yeah, I'm doing great. No problem at all.
Yeah, and we are here with some exciting news today. We're here to talk about an express entry draw, which just happened. And Hugo, were we expecting an express entry draw today?
No, in fact, I had my calendar booked for the morning. I had various meetings, internal, external, and then the government comes along and invites 5,000 people for immigration. It was a surprise, I think, for you and for me, and for those 5,000 people out there who were invited this morning, but a very welcome surprise, I think it's fair to say.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think basically all the information that we have coming out of this draw is very exciting. If anyone is looking to read through our latest results and analysis, I just posted that as the pinned comment here in the feed. But Hugo and I are, of course, going to review everything that you need to know that happened in today's draw. If you guys have questions, the comments are open. Drop your questions in the comments. We'll take a couple minutes here at the end to go through any questions that you guys have. But let's get into it, Hugo. So you already teased a little bit about the number of invitations that were issued today. Can you tell people how many invitations were issued and what was the CRS score cutoff in today's draw?
So yeah, there were 5,000 invitations issued. That is actually the same number of invitations that were issued exactly a week ago, last week on November 18th. As lots of people will know, typically express entry draws are spaced around 2 weeks apart, and to get two in back-to-back weeks is a rarity. The fact that each of these are the largest draws ever as well is placing a lot of downward pressure on the number of points you need to have in order to be invited. So this time it was 469. And then just before we went live, I looked into the recent history. We haven't actually had 469 or any number of points below that so far this year for an all program draw, as far as I can tell. So this is the first time it's dipped below 470 since last December.
Yeah, which
Um,
is
Last December, when you know the word pandemic was something you read about in history books, not on the front page of the news, etc. So yeah, it's a big deal. It really aligns nicely with ramping up immigration numbers as we move towards hopefully a much more travel friendly 2021. And when you combine travel friendliness with a country like Canada, with immigration friendliness and those big immigration targets, not just for next year, but for the next 3 years, you're looking at potentially those large invitation rounds being a fixture over the coming weeks, months, and years. So lots of positive news coming out.
right, and of course we can't guarantee that. The five
Oh, of course.
thousand, the 5,000 ITAs this week and the 5,000 ITAs last week are great, and they're one of
Mm.
the big factors that's pushed the CRS score cutoff lower. But as we say in almost every video, IRCC and Express Entry, they are notoriously unpredictable. So while there are definite reasons to be optimistic, we can't guarantee that we're going to continue seeing this regularity of draws nor this high number of ITAs issued in each draw. And I've just pulled up the draw results here on the Moving to Canada website. Again, you can access this page through the pinned comment there. A couple of other important notes here. This was an all program draw, so candidates in all of the Express Entry Aligned programs were invited or were eligible to be invited. That's important to highlight just because we did go through a period this year early on in the pandemic where draws were restricted to specific programs. So everyone was eligible in today's draw. And I'm going to scroll down through our webpage here so that we can show off the score distribution of candidates. Um,
Yeah, there's something we put in this just in the past hour about the score distribution. It's actually more than 2,000 fewer total candidates in the pool than there were a week ago. So the figure from 2 weeks ago was it was nearly 147,000 candidates in the pool. It's now dipped below 145,000. And what that shows is, look, there's lots of ways that people can leave the pool. Their profiles can expire. They can leave by their own volition, by their own choice, or they can be invited to apply. And in the past 7 days, we've seen 10,000 invitations to apply issued. And that would surely have an effect on the number of candidates in the pool.
Right.
So the number of candidates leaving the pool is actually like greater than the number of candidates entering the pool. Now that's just over the last week or two, but it's an interesting trend to take note
Well,
of.
and I mean, just take a look at this visual. All you folks out there, you can see on the right-hand side of this graph the numbers in those columns for 471 to 480, 481 to 490, all the way up to the 1200 limit. There's almost nothing there, and then you see this big wall go up right at 461 to 470. So that's where we're working through this week, and that's why we did see it drop down to 469 this week. Now, we do have a couple of questions that have come in here, Hugo, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, so I'm going to field this one to you. It came in from Moez, who is citing the Canada Immigration Levels Plan for next year, for the next 3 years, which projects a target of 400,000 new permanent residents next year, slightly more than that. And Moaz is asking, do you think that 400,000 new permanent residents is realistic for 2021? And how would you forecast the CRS score movements considering that prediction?
Well, Moaz, you know, to use a cliche, I don't have my crystal ball handy, but a lot will depend, I think, on some external factors like the distribution and efficacy of a vaccine program, not just in Canada, but globally, which will hopefully allow more typical travel and migration patterns to resume. Um, that factor. Another factor that people kind of rarely take into account is the ambition and wherewithal of the government of Canada, not just the current one, but previous governments as well, to get things like this done. Canada has historically been able to bring in hundreds of thousands of people annually. And, when there's a will, there's a way, I think. They're ramping up these invitations numbers now. Now, if someone invited today, they might take 2 months to submit their application. That application might take 6 months to process, and then they might take 6 or 12 months actually to land. So some of these people won't land, until next year and the year after. I think they can do it. I'm not saying they are going to do it. That 400,000 is a sure thing, but I think they can, and I think that they'll make every effort to make that happen. Because then, as we constantly bounce around, internally as well as on these videos, Canada's birth rate is way less than the replacement rate it needs in order to have a workforce that can sustain the social programs that are currently in place. And they will find a way to make this happen. It might be the case that it won't be consistent throughout the year. It might have to be like a lot of admissions maybe in the second half of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I'm not the expert on how a vaccine might work, and therefore I defer to those that know better. I just think that the immigration department is correct to show this level of ambition. I think they can get it done, and let's just hope that that's
Well,
possible.
and I'd like to highlight something that you mentioned there about the timeline for admission of permanent residents. So as you pointed out, Hugo, the 5,000 ITAs issued in this draw, the 5,000 issued in last week's draw, those applicants, they very well, I mean, they won't be arriving, they won't be confirming their permanent residence until 2021 at the earliest. Some of them not
Yeah.
until 2022. So these ITAs are fueling those targets for next year. So it's clear that they are already taking direct action to try to achieve those very high level objectives that they've set out.
And let's just take that very quickly to the next stage, which is there were draws this summer and during the spring when COVID was new, although those draws were kind of strange in that they were program specific in most cases, and thousands of invitations were issued, and it will be those people who will be approved, say, the next spring. So there will be a steady stream of people who will be approved to land. Um, Whether they'll be able to is another question, but Canada will always have like a steady stream of people coming in. I think that was showed a lot of foresight to continue doing draws
Right.
throughout the year, you know?
Well, and they now have this backlog of people who have gone through Express Entry but are living outside Canada and the United States, who haven't been legally able to enter Canada
Land.
since
Yeah.
March, since the travel restrictions went into effect. So, a big component of this will just simply just be once the travel restrictions lift, you have all of these people who have already been approved for permanent residence but
Yes.
haven't been able to land. So there will probably be an
Right. Because
influx
they
at
don't
that
count
point.
as admissions yet. They count as approvals, but not admissions.
Exactly.
And yeah, that's once it's safe to do so. I not the floodgates may open to some extent. Yeah, I think that's a very insightful point you just
Thank you. I try.
made.
We had a question from Alex that incidentally you kind of answered in your last answer, Hugo. Alex was asking what is the average processing time we should be hoping for once an ITA is issued and documents are submitted. Alex, we can talk in terms of average processing times. IRCC has stated for the past couple of years that 80% of permanent residence applications submitted through Express Entry are processed in 6 months or less. According to their Express Entry year-end reports, it's actually been a little bit faster than that on average for most people, 4 or 5 months, depending on the program. But the elephant in the room is COVID, which has just shattered all expectations in terms of processing. IRCC themselves have stated repeatedly over the past few months that even the processing times they have listed on their website at this point are no longer accurate. There are too many variables at play in terms of COVID and how that's impacting the processing of immigration applications. So you can think about the historic information we have about how long it used to take, but be aware that we're living in a bit of a gray zone here in 2020, and we're still waiting for some regularity to come back to immigration processing in Canada.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the processing for 2020, once the data comes out officially, will be a month or two at least longer than for previous years.
At least. I wouldn't be shocked if it was longer than that. So one last thing I wanted to point out to our audience, just a cool little event we've got coming up here. And I'm going to show off the Express Entry draw page on the Moving to Canada website. You can access this page simply by clicking the link in the pinned comment on this live stream. But you'll see right at the top here, we've got a little banner for a free event alert. This is an event that's taking place on November 27th, so on Friday. It's at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Toronto time, so you have to adjust for your own time zone. But we're doing a live stream on how to manage your finances as a newcomer to Canada, and this is an event that we're producing in partnership with HSBC Bank Canada, and we're going to be speaking with Raza Hassan, who is HSBC Canada's Chief Risk Officer of Wealth and Personal Banking. So it's going to be a really informative live stream, and you can simply click the link here that's on that page, and it takes you right to the Facebook event. It's going to be going live on Facebook, and you can simply RSVP here, and then you'll get a notification when we do go live on Friday. So it's going to be super interesting, super informative. So if you're free, we highly recommend checking that out.
Yeah, then I might just add to that, like, you're a Canadian. I'm not. I immigrated to here from Ireland in my 20s. And I think if I had had earlier access to the kind of insights and advice that you guys will be sharing this Friday, I would have made better financial decisions. That's a fact. So I think anyone who's coming to Canada soon or recently arrived, or even if they've been here a few years, the half hour or so that they might invest of their time in terms of attending the event, that'll reap returns over the coming months and years in terms of their financial goals. So it's going to be a really fun event. We've had a whole heap of fun working with HSBC this year, and yeah, this is just another part of that.
Well, and honestly, like you mentioned that I grew up in Canada, but I've even
Yeah,
learned. I've been preparing for this live stream for the past 2 weeks, and like I've been learning things
that's good.
about finances in Canada that no one ever taught me. Why?
Yeah, yeah,
So there's a lot of knowledge up for grabs here. It'll really help set you guys up for your financial futures in Canada. So that's happening on Friday. And again, just click the link in the pinned comment and you'll see the RSVP right there at the top of the page. So I think we've gotten through everything, all the important news for today. Hugo, can you give a quick summary of the news for today? It was an express entry draw, so tell people how many invitations, what the CRS score cutoff was, and which programs were eligible.
all programs. So that's federal skilled worker, federal skilled trades, Canadian experience class, as well as any provincial nominees that were in the pool that meet the requisite score, which was 469, which is the lowest all program cutoff score in nearly a year, and definitely the lowest since before the old pandemic kicked in. So yeah, it's great news. 5,000 invitations, same number as last week together. They're each of them are the joint largest in the 168 draw old express entry system. So yeah, it's great news and bodes well for future draws. We hope. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, 9. It's not bad.
And again, for full results and analysis, you can click the link in the pinned comment. It's been a pleasure going live today to bring you guys the latest news and results. Thank you, Hugo, for joining me. Always nice to have you here.
Always a pleasure.
Someday we're gonna get your dog in this live stream, I hope. But today wasn't
I
the.
actually kicked her right
Oh,
before the
you
stream.
did?
I was
People love dogs. It's great for the
like,
internet, I hear. And thank you guys for tuning in. We will of course see you next time. There's an immigration news or update, and hopefully we'll see you on Friday at 3 p.m. Toronto time for our financial information live stream. Thanks. Bye.
all right, cheerio.